would be my approach for rebuilding consensus on the issue of human rights back to the basics. For the United Nations to discharge the responsibilities set out in the Charter, let me say this clearly and simply. Reform is no longer an optional choice. It is an imperative. Without it, the institution is at grave risk. We cannot continue to do business as usual. To do so would be a grave mistake and error of judgment. Key to the organization's success is its legitimacy, effectiveness, and efficiency. And therefore, the reform initiative subsumed under UN 80 must not only be continued as a priority of the Secretary General, but be a continuous process that becomes part of the DNA, the outlook, the culture of the organization. Every organization that wishes to be at the cutting edge, vibrant and viable, must consistently bring review and constantly. Madam President, as Secretary General, I would put priority on harnessing the incredible force which is being unleashed by artificial intelligence to make this a force for good for the entire world community with access and benefit for all. I have, over the last 5 years, been based in northern Uganda. And when the calls and messages asking me to consider to be a candidate for this position came, I was in northern Uganda. What was I doing there? Many of you will recall this is a part of the world that was radically destroyed, collapsed, as a result of over 20 years of the LRA war. So I've been engaged with others in the enterprise of rebuilding, of restoring, of resuscitating a terribly broken society. I have some idea what peace building means at the ground level. And I believe that United Nations should make it its business to enunciate policies and standards from New York and Geneva and Vienna, but also follow to see the impact on the ground at the national and community level. And finally, Madam President, what I offer, if I'm given the opportunity to be Secretary General, is broad and very deep experience of working across all the 3 pillars of the UN. It is a track record of building consensus and offering innovative solutions in times of deadlock and crisis. And I would just, Madam President, please end on this note because this inspires me. It is St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. I would embrace this role with the same passion, commitment that I've shown in every leadership position I've had here. I thank you very much, Madam President.
I thank Mr. Otunnu. We now proceed to the first segment. Delegation wishing to speak in the first segment are invited to press the microphone button now. Members are reminded that they are encouraged to ask short and focused questions. Interventions should be not more than 2 minutes for delegations speaking in national capacity and not more than 3 minutes for delegations speaking on behalf of a group of member states. As before, time limits will be strictly enforced by automatic microphone cutoff. A timer will be projected on screen. To assist speakers to observe their time limit, their microphone will start blinking 30 seconds before the time limit elapses. As indicated in my letter, after each intervention, the candidate will be given the floor to respond. The response should not be more than 2 minutes for questions from delegations speaking in national capacity and not more than 3 minutes from delegations speaking on behalf of a group of member states. I will remind candidates, I would remind you, Mr. Otunnu, also to stick to your speaking time limits. I will hand you over a card. You don't have automatic microphone cutoffs, but to have a fair and transparent process for everybody else, I would kindly ask you to stay within the time limit. Civil society questions will be interspersed with questions from member states. As mentioned before, we will now focus on leadership abilities, experience, and skills needed to lead a strong organization that is fit for the future. As the first speaker, I now give the floor to the distinguished representative from Qatar on behalf of the Arab Group, followed by the European Union and Nepal.
شكرا لكم السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Madam President. We are honored to speak on behalf of the Arab Group, and we thank Mr. Olara Otunnu for presenting his vision and priorities for this position. We reaffirm our availability to work with the candidate to enhance the organization's ability to deal with the current challenges and to further establish sustainable development and the UN Charter principles. We have the following questions. First, with regards to the differences in the implementation of international law between countries, what do you think about the issue of non-selectiveness in order to enhance the credibility of the multilateral system and enhance the reliability of these standards? Second, how will you work on increasing the effectiveness of the efforts of the organization with regards to the question of Palestine in order to implement relevant resolutions and obtain a sustaining peace? Third, we see an increase in conflicts and challenges related to the respect of international law and to the UN Charter. How do you propose that this adherence should be strengthened and to enable UN organizations such as UNRWA from fulfilling their roles? Fourth, as for the liquidity crisis and the regression in development efforts and the issue of rising debt, how will you work on the development pillar and advance the implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Agenda and provide help for developing countries? Fifth, what is your opinion on the reform of the Security Council? Which mechanism do you think would be most effective? And what is your opinion also on the expansion of the Security Council and the use of veto? Sixth, what do you see? How do you view the UN 80 initiative and its possibility and effects on the organization? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Qatar on behalf of the Arab Group. Just as a reminder for everybody, we have 3 hours. You can also come back to some of the questions if it's not possible in the time limits. Please, Mr. Otunnu, you have the floor.
First, on the reform of the Security Council. Very important project, very historic project. The primary responsibility falls on member states, especially the permanent members and the other members of the organization, to continue working, discussing, and come up with a consensus that is viable. But as Secretary General, I would very much encourage this and underscore the fact that there's some historical imbalance that needs to be corrected, but there should be a consensus that is forged between the permanent members and the rest of the membership. Development continues to be exceedingly important, And indeed, I'm concerned that we don't seem to be on track on current indications for fulfilling the SDGs. Particular emphasis should be put on garnering more resources, on encouraging developing countries to assume more responsibility within their own countries, so that we perform better on the SDGs than we did on the Millennium Development Goals, with which I was very much involved. On the UN Charter and the principles in the UN Charter, these principles are for the entire United Nations and the entire membership.